So without further ado, we're going to start the first segment, which is called 0 to 6 months. And we're going to explore what they did from the inception of the idea to 6 months later to really get their business off the ground. So we're going to start with you, Kai. So I imagine most LSE students, when they walk around campus, they're thinking about their assignments, their exams. What made you think what's missing here is an AI-powered robotic bubble tea machine? Please share with us.
I must caveat that we're not 6 months yet, we're only about a month and a half. But I thought on my travels to and from university that bubble tea is something that is such a unique product. It's seen as coffee for some, tea for some, and I would pass by T4 every morning, walking over Waterloo Bridge, and see there was a queue in the rain, in the snow, in the sun, whatever the weather, there was a queue. And I thought, what is this? I've tried bubble tea once before, but never got into it. So I really got into it, did a lot of research into it, and thought this is a great thing, but it's so far from campus. This was before there was anything closer to campus. And I thought that there could be a really great way of integrating this. I've got a real interest in robotics. I really like looking into the future, seeing what could be next. And I thought bubble tea was kind of almost a silly way of trying to incite a change that we can move towards kind of robotic arm-powered things so we can have lower prices. This week we're doing a promotion for $1.99 bubble tea, so that kind of shows you how you can price a lot lower, and so it is good for the consumer. And not only that, you're not cutting jobs, you're upskilling jobs. There's a lot of coding, programming, also making it freshly made every day. So that there are a lot of benefits, I think.
Yeah, so thank you so much. So could you explain the journey that you had this idea? What was next? Because were you even allowed to bring this machine onto campus?
So the journey was longer than a month and a half. A month and a half is just the business time we've been open for. But the journey really started when I first got to LSE. I was doing that walk every day, looking around, seeing that demand for bubble tea. And I thought, next, I need to do as much research as I can so I could present it to somebody, but in an informed way. I think that's important. So I located various entities around LSE, got a lot of cold emailing, unresponsiveness, which I'm sure a lot of kind of co-founders have had. But there was one person at LSE, head of estates, who was really interested in hearing me. And I had an interview with them, and I kind of put everything out there, everything I could, and really said, like, let's get this going. And I'm really happy with where we are. Although we've just started, we give a lot of money of our revenue to scholarships and bursaries. So next year there will be students coming to LSE from bubble tea, which is so insane to me.
Fantastic. And for any entrepreneurs who want to sell their venture, what sales techniques did you have to convince the real estate manager to get the bubble tea?
So I think with sales techniques, you really have to know everything. It's a short meeting I had with a very high up figure. And I knew if there was any question that was left unresponded or fell on deaf ears, that this could really hurt my idea in the long term. It would be pushed back to a next meeting where it might never happen, and I would have to find the answer. I really looked around, all the research I could. I really did my due diligence as much as I could to go into that meeting prepared. I had a briefcase, full of A to Z things that I could be asked. Is it insurance? Is it demand? What is the customer base? What's my projections? I really kind of planned everything out so I could come informed, and I think that hopefully came off and kind of convinced him to go with such a crazy idea. And I think that was the hard part about it, that it didn't exist before, so there wasn't really a precedent to show.
Exactly. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Kai. Wasn't that amazing? Right. Deborah, we'll be coming to you next. So you didn't even want to start a business. So what happened between not starting a business and having the idea for .blog?
Yeah, so I think just when I was younger, I had very poor, I don't know, just stereotypes in my head about what business leaders looks like.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I didn't update this information, which was my mistake. But yeah, just seeing the people who were like leading very successful businesses I was like, no, that's not me. I think I was also telling you on the podcast that I watched a lot of Apprentice and Dragon's Den. And I was thinking, if this is what entrepreneurship looks like, this is not for me. But anyway, so I came to Imperial for my master's. I did a joint master's between Imperial College and the Royal College of Art. And I just found that there was such a huge startup hub at Imperial. And I was like, what's all of this about? Saw that there were so many founders who were leading successful businesses. It was actually a viable career path for these people. So that was kind of the starting point of thinking, okay, this is doable, interesting. But I still wasn't convinced. So anyway, we were working on a group project in the second year of the master's program. And it all came along like quite organically. So we were chatting about the different challenges that we've had in looking after our health. And in this group project, the focus was on creating some sort of impact, whether it's societal, environmental, whatever. So chatting about our health, we all found that we were very interested in designing for healthcare. We were thinking, okay, you can monitor your glucose, you can monitor your sleep, you can monitor your exercise. Like so many aspects and facets of your health you can keep on top of. Yeah. When it comes to your breast health, there just isn't anything. And then my co-founder as well, Shafali, she once felt this kind of like lumpy, knotty pain in her breast went to her gynae about it, who told her to just keep an eye on it, check it for the next couple of weeks. She went home thinking, how do you check? How do you monitor? How do you keep an eye on your breasts? So that was kind of the starting point for conversation of how do we look after our breast health? What are the ways that we do this? Is there anyone else who's been struggling with looking after themselves in that aspect of their health? So we went out, we spoke to so many more women. That was kind of the bedrock of our research. So similar to Kai, it was like research. Get to know your users. How many people resonate with this problem? Is it a problem worth solving? So that was like the first thing to establish. And once we found that lots of people were resonating with it wasn't just an anecdote. It was like, okay, there's something to do here. There's an opportunity. So we just took it from there and put it into a competition. It was Imperial's largest entrepreneurial competition called the Venture Catalyst Challenge, because none of us had any sort of like business background, so we wanted to just establish a good foundation of what it takes to build a viable business. Yeah. And it was like a 7-week crash course of like IP, how to build a team, what's your customer discovery, what does that look like, forming the foundation of all of our understanding, just built it from there basically.
So it really seems that to build a business, you really get to know your problem first before even starting.
Absolutely.
Like building the venture. Brilliant. So next, Mark, we'll come to you. So you had this idea for starting app. What was your motivation for it?
Quite a personal motivation, I guess. So when I came to London to study here, I just really wanted to try out the entrepreneurship scene, because I thought, well, while I'm doing the masters, I'm kind of protected CV-wise, and so let's just try something out. So I came here with this super high motivation, and then I know I was felt a bit lost quite quickly. I went to some events from Google or so for entrepreneurs and so on, but they are these older guys who don't really care about students, fair enough. Then you go to some student things, and it never really felt right, and so I was well, why is there no online space for entrepreneurs? And so this is why the idea was born, and I think that some others feel the same way, maybe even some others here in the room, and so we created the co-founder matching app.
Yeah, and why do you think it's so important for students to have a co-founder or young people as entrepreneurs? Do you think they have to have a co-founder?
No, not at all. So we also looked at research. There's actually not really research that says, well, if you have a co-founder, you're better. Many investors do, though, prefer if you have a co-founder, and for some it's even a hard thing you have to have. Nonetheless, for me personally, I think it's really good to have a co-founder that is compatible to you. So that means on a personality level, but also from a skill level. And skill level means especially that you don't team up with your classmate who studies the same thing as you, but with people who are doing something different, right? As Dr. for instance, all science people and looking for some more business know-how or so, would definitely make sense to get some business people in there. The problem often enough is that, when you are at uni, Imperial, LSE, whatever, you're quite sealed in your class. Hard to get to know other entrepreneurs,
Yeah. So please share with us how you met your co-founder, and are they compatible in skills?
Yeah, I have on the personality level for sure, and also from the split really good. So my co-founder is David. He's doing a PhD in physics while I'm on the really business side. I think that's the perfect split. between us two. We actually met through sailing, so that's our hobby, and that's how many stories started so far, I think, from co-founders. You met at some random point, and then we got sort of friends, and then some months later we were like, hey, shall we work on this together? So yeah, it was by randomness. For us it worked out fine, but I mean, randomness is not often like the good starting point for something.
Yeah, so they could use your app if you don't meet by chance to find something.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Brilliant. So Aryan, you were snorkeling in the Indian Ocean.
I was.
And then you just thought, actually, I want to start a business. Like, please tell us, how did that come about?
So yeah, I was snorkeling in the Indian Ocean, as you do, and when I was under there, I was like, this is a different world, completely, because obviously we don't live underwater, if you haven't noticed, and I was just obsessed. This was many years ago, and then I was preparing to come to uni. I wanted to actually do paleontology, so like Ross from Friends, studying dinosaurs, working in a museum, Natural History Museum, which is next to Imperial. That was my dream. And I actually had a podcast back in the day. I don't have it anymore. I don't do episodes anymore. And I spoke to a guy called Dr. Shah, and we spoke about mapping the seafloor, why it's so important. Because I was like, why is it so important? I didn't know. I was going to study dinosaurs. I'm still doing the same degree. And we spoke about it, and I was like, yeah, everybody focuses on space, right? Like, wow, Apollo missions, wow, it's so cool out there. And I was like, yeah, but wow, we've got an ocean. Like, wow, 70% of our planet is covered by water, and we don't know a thing about it. Only like a few weeks ago, we mapped like 25%. It's a lot, but it's not enough. I realized this problem. I started doing the modules at uni, and I was like, okay, I really want to look at this now. I want to be the person who is talking about the seas and advocating for it, because it is so important. Like, you think about renewable energy, whether it comes from the land or the sea, but offshore wind turbines, they're so powerful, they generate so much electricity and energy. How do we put them there? We need to know the area, we need to characterize the site that we put it down. You don't know that if you haven't mapped the seafloor. The current ways of doing it are very expensive, they're very carbon heavy. You have like 10 people on board a ship, it's like millions of pounds per day to survey the seafloor, which is crazy. And I just kept thinking about this, and I was like, I want to do something about this. And so, as these guys were saying, lots of research before, talking to people, talking to professors. Professors sometimes aren't as thinking about telling you about it, but I found later on that actually they are quite nice. So I spoke to them, I spoke to some people, spoke to Dr. Chow. Dr. Chow was like, no, wait like 10 years. Take some classes on thermodynamics and fluid dynamics. And I was like, nah, I'm going to start now, because as someone said, don't let great ideas as you said, actually, don't let great ideas slip away. Just do it when you can. Yeah.
So you had this idea, and you've actually received a small investment. Like, how did you go from this idea to convincing people to give you money for this idea? And since you don't study the oceans, you're quite new to this, how did you convince them to?
I mean, I had a pretty good understanding, I say, of the geophysics, the data. That's what I'm being taught on my course right now. Like, next time I've got all ocean-based modules. So it was actually at the start of one of these accelerator programs that we entered and ended up like being one of the winners. And I think what was key for us was having small, tangible goals. So I know that I need an X amount of money to do something small, but that will actually be very valuable in the long term. For us, of course, we want to use hydrogen down the line. It's so clean, it's so amazing, and I'll always advocate for it because it's so good. But we can't jump straight into hydrogen without learning the proper nuts and bolts, literally the nuts and bolts of building underwater vehicles, underwater robots. It's a hard craft, and perfecting that first. So when we approached our angel, who is now our advisor, we said, look, we've got certain things, like small goals. We want to build a small robot, we want to test it, small swimming pool. And so we make it sort of appealing that, we have a goal that we want to get to. We have something that we want to do. It's quite a simple system. Well, for the basic one, not the end product, it's quite hard. We know what we need to do. We need the resources, X, Y, and Z, and this is our plan. I think having a plan is really key, because if you just go up to someone and say, give me money, it's not going to work. If you also provide a compelling story, say, hey, there's demand for this in the future, there is money in this space, and also it's for a fantastic cause. Like, it's not necessarily always about the money. It's also about the social impact, the environmental impact, the sort of ESG aspect too. So that's what we did, and we ended up with, it was a small amount, but we've used it to build 2 prototypes now, we're going to test it in a couple of weeks, and it's more advanced than the last one. And then next year we'll move on to metal-based for deep sea testing.
Brilliant. So you met this investor at a demo day, and you just showed him your plan and asked him to invest.
Yeah, we were quite upfront about it. I think that's also quite key, is having that sort of, like just go hard, go home
Just tell them that
attitude.
you want money.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, well, kind of, but not really. Like, you need to convey that you need it, but also in sort of a discreet way, but also being quite confident about what you're trying to do. That's what we do.
Brilliant. And the next segment of this podcast is called Reality. Get it? Reality. Okay, anyway. We want to know the real journeys of the founders, the ups and downs and everything in between. So we really want to keep it real here. So I'm going to be asking you a series of questions to explain to us your business ventures. So Deborah, we'll start with you. What are some of the hardest challenges about running a business?
Yeah. I mean, one of the big things is that there's so many cogs in motion at the same time. So many things for you to be keeping on top of. So I think having that serious time management and a really good way to structure your day is critical. Similar to what Aryan said, it's really important to break down your work into milestones. Because I think one thing that we can find quite difficult is focusing too much on what your end goal is. It's so important to keep that in mind. But it can be quite overwhelming when you think, I need to do this. So breaking it down into tangible milestones, like you were saying, has been really crucial for us. Another thing is fundraising. Of course, fundraising is always a challenge. But I think understanding your domain, the field that you're working within, and then how people within that will kind of get their money is important. So for us, grants is a huge thing. So that's one thing that we've hinged on quite a lot from the beginning of the inception of Dotplot. And for other people, it's going straight for angels or going straight for accelerator programs, whichever. But just understanding what is best for your market, your area, and going from there. And I guess final challenge, I think, is understanding what our route to market is.
Yeah.
Because of course it's a medical device. But if you frame it to somebody like that, oh, it's a medical device. It's well, do I really want to buy it? I don't want to buy this machine that's going to be doing weird things on me in my house. So really framing your product, your service, your offering, whatever it is, in the correct way that really speaks to your users, to your customers is critical. And we've done that by understanding who the customers are properly. So one thing we did from the very beginning, before we ever built anything, was to understand people very, very deeply. What their preferences, how do they behave, how are they currently engaging with their breast health, what are their pain points, how can we be addressing those? And then just lifting the key things that are coming out of these conversations and kind of tying those up to see, okay, what can we really be solving? So that has been crucial. Understanding your customer base, what do they want, and then how can I package my product or my service or my offering to meet that need properly. So, yeah.
Brilliant. And what would some of your challenges, Kai, with building Nova&Boba?
I can't speak to kind of the access to funding challenges. These two entrepreneurs are more advanced down the line. We're quite new, but I can definitely speak to challenges as we're a fulfillment business, especially in the beverage industry. You get a lot of bad advice. You get a lot of kind of people not liking the tea. And I think that was really tough, especially in the first week or two for me. I think I built quite a thick skin in that way that, it's not for everyone. And sometimes, as they said, it's progression. It's about building small things, working on one flavor each day, making sure it's tried, tested, modified, and never being comfortable. I think that perfectionism is something that everyone kind of shares, where your business is never at any stage complete. It's never finished. It's not a task where you can finish. It's a multiple progression of tasks. And if you get better and you have that attitude that it will get better in the future, I think that was really important for me, overcoming challenges. From specific challenges, I think being self-funded, there was a lot of risk. I got loans to fund the machine, which is okay, but I wouldn't really advise. I kind of took a risk because it is not something that existed, and I think these founders also, it's not something that is established in either industries. But I think kind of working through them in a tangible way is always the most important thing.
And yeah, when you get rejections, how do you take that on board? How do you have the confidence to keep on going after people tell you
I think at the real start it was tough because I didn't have anyone cooking the tea. It was just me cooking from very, very early in the morning. I'd wake up maybe 4 a.m., cook, then fill the machine, and then manage the machine all day. And it kind of, when I was cooking on low sleep, it was tough to take that feedback. But now it's more standardized and we've got better cooks than me cooking the tea. That it's few and far between. But yeah, I think you just got to just build yourself up, stay positive, always think that there will be a tomorrow and a next week and it will get better, I think. Don't let yourself get down on small things. And there will always be the odd person that is not a fan, and that's all okay.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you, Kai. And Aryan, what's been some of your biggest challenges whilst running in Xtech?
I think being a student founder is quite hard because, you know, if I could, I'd do this full time, but also like I want to keep pursuing my degree and stuff. So it's like, oh yeah, you know, I got these things to do with the company, but I've got a project that's worth a quarter of my year due next Friday. So it's quite a tricky balance, and you know, managing the tasks in that way is quite hard. I think also sometimes reaching certain customers is kind of hard because some people will talk to you, some people will not. They'll be like, oh, you know, what's your experience in underwater robotics? And it's like, yeah, but I'm passionate about this, so I will execute. You know, so because I think it depends on like the demographic in the industry. Some people are like a bit older, so they're kind of stuck in their ways. Some people are younger, so it's actually quite nice, a fresh perspective. But I think definitely being a student founder is hard. So people who are running or, you know, aspiring to do that while studying, it's a big thing, I'd say. So, and definitely do pursue it because, like, you know, you feel alive every day. It's like, oh my God, I don't know what could happen today. I could get a message from Michael C. who's saying, I want to invest in you. Like tomorrow, I'd be like, wow, that's amazing. You know, you never know, but there are definitely peaks and troughs, as these guys have been saying, but you just got to take it in your stride and think of it as like a learning point instead of like getting knocked down, I guess.
So you balance being a student and your business. How would you advise others to manage their time?
I think I'd say, as I've said, and you know, we're saying, you know, tangible goals is quite key. If you just have an arbitrary goal that, hey, I want to build a hydrogen vehicle, it's not going to happen. But if you say, okay, this is the next step, this is the next step, and then small steps that you can integrate somehow into your routine. Also, you know, fit it around the most important thing. If your uni is your most important thing, fit it around that, of course, because that's the center point right now. But I'd say, you know, spare time that you have, do give your company some time during that time as well. Like if you have holiday time, you know, if you have an evening free, of course, definitely do that. But I'd say do prioritize as well, whatever is important.
Yeah, brilliant. And Mark, what are some of your hardest challenges?
Good question. Yeah, so I think I would go for prioritizing. So so as I said, we have a quite good split in our team. So my co-founder very much on the technical side. We also have a team of 6 people now, which is great. But so many like on the technical side. So we have 2 other who develop like app and web app and so on. And then myself more on the business side. And when I talk about prioritizing, you know, first of all, you have the idea, right? And then you can say already, yeah, okay, what is next now, right? So you can say, okay, we can start straight away to build an app, but we have actually no real clue how it should look like exactly. So then this is, again, more on my side to like talk to many founders and like say hello. I mean, I spoke also to some in the room here and to learn about their journey, what they actually need, and like students and so on when they want to break into entrepreneurship, what is like hindering them, and to learn about all this. So then, but while this is happening, what do the other people do, right? So it's really thinking about your time and that you know what is important right now and what you can do later. I think that's quite crucial. And we didn't always get it right. So I think we started much too early to jump on the tech, and we built something which was really cool, but we still like rebuild everything again. So that's cool. Yeah, I think also take advice in the really early days and to be like clear what is the goal right now. That's good.
Brilliant. The next segment, we're going to talk about financing the journey, because 83% of Gen Zs want to start a business, but actually are most hindered by the fact that they don't have the money to do so. So yeah, we're just going to be delving into like how you finance your journey, hopefully provide some tips on how others can also finance their journey. So I understand with UKI, there was a lot of legal implications of building boba. So did you have to get lawyers involved? And if so, how did you pay for it?
I kind of, from stage one with Boba, I tried to almost engineer my own money and capital, even not having that. So for example, taking it back to the tea, when we were tasting tea, I kind of emailed so many bubble tea material companies and said, look, I'm a big enterprise looking to switch manufacturers to you. If you send me some samples, I'll try them, I'll give feedback, and we might go with you. And a lot said, okay, pay us. And I didn't have that money. That's the real, but a lot came back because I emailed so many, a lot came back and said, look, we're happy to send for free. And I took the samples and I made them myself and I bought them around LSE, around student accommodations. And I said, look, free tea, try it. And I took every piece of feedback that everyone gave and we really zeroed in on the right manufacturer. So I think that kind of thing, really using what you have as your strengths, and your strengths might be your weaknesses, that I was small, but I could email around and I was not tied down to a single manufacturer. So really getting your way through, it's not always a clear path and you don't always need the money. I think that's the only thing I can speak to because I'm self-funded. I can speak to kind of ways that you guys, anyone could start a business, just start the first Instagram post or anything. It's free. Just see where it goes. It doesn't have to be perfect, I think. I had this idea for over a year, and in the first Instagram post after that, I made a spelling mistake after literally looking at the post for like hours. It happens, but no one remembers it, and your idea moves on, and what you start might not be where you finish, so it might adapt into something. So I think always starting things, even if you don't have the money, you don't have that funding, you're not flush with cash, that's okay. I think starting and seeing where it goes is the main thing.
Yeah, brilliant. And Deborah, how did you get your grants for your business? Is there any tips you could share with us?
How did we get those? To be honest, we started small. So grants, they range from like 5-10K up to millions of pounds. So with us, similar to what Aryan was saying, we were thinking, okay, where do we need to get to next? So we figured out that what we really needed to build was our ability to be able to position where the devices are in the body. Okay, how much is that going to cost? We kind of costed it out. Okay, that's about 50K. Which grants are offering that amount of money? So we did it that way, just thinking about what the next milestone is and then what's out there that's available to us. And one piece of advice that we got from a mentor was to never limit what you apply to by your industry. Okay. So for example, there are grants out there that will say, oh, it's like the biomedical catalyst, or it's focused on medical products, or the development of medical devices. But to not limit what you're doing to just those sorts of grants. There's so many more out there that say like, early stage development, or there's one called one we applied for was called the Fast Start Innovation Grant, which is about accelerating businesses quite quickly. So don't limit it to the grants specific to your domain. Like think outside of the box, because there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot, and you can really just widen that out. And from there, just building up your experiences. Don't throw all your money away to grant writers, because at the end of the day, they regurgitate what you tell them. So I build experience in kind of learning how to write grants yourself. And I was mentioning this on the podcast as well, to say don't take what they say in the questions as like prompts. They're not prompts. They're literally just answering like specifically. Similar to English comprehension or like verbal reasoning or whatever that horrendous stuff we had to do at 11 plus. Literally just do it really specifically. So answer them, line for line. But yeah, that's how we got started. And also speak to people who have gone ahead and done grants as well. That would be my advice. But don't limit it to grants. There's so many other ways to make money. But those are the main ones when we're starting off. Competitions are also really good. So those are good for like getting a small amount of money in, developing a bit more, and then going forward. So
competitions and grants.
Competitions, yes.
And Aryan, what about you? How did you funding this journey through your angel investors?
Yeah, so we had the angel at the beginning of the next program that we were on, to get going on our prototype, first proof of concept, so to speak. And that was great, to show our sort of traction and our progress throughout the program. And then, so we were one of the winners, so we got a little bit of cash from that as well, which was also good. and that's brilliant. To be honest, we've been trying to find more funding somehow in the big world out there, whether it's angel from the same one or through other sources, grants as well. Fantastic, as Deborah was saying. I think they're quite tricky to write. So if you do get a grant, it's absolutely amazing for you, because I've heard like crazy stories about it. But yeah, I think one thing that I would definitely say is whatever funding you have, try and, especially for hardware, I know it's hard and it's different for software, it's different for hardware, but for hardware, that was problem that we faced, is how do we prove such like a complex technical solution in the smallest way possible? There are definitely ways, you just got to sit and think and try and bounce different ideas of people. We had different advisors to bounce ideas off of and stuff, which was great. But basically building whatever you can in the least amount of money possible, I think it's a good principle to have. And we tried that, like we tried to get like 500 quid and we built something for like 250 quid, like at least a basic demonstratable robot. And it was good, it was alright. And we'll iterate on that design over and over and over again until we're happy and until the customers are happy. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Brilliant. So trying to be economical with your cash.
Yeah.
Like that to build prototypes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's tempting, to get the odd pizza with company money. Just chuck it on the company card, Just sound cool with your friends. But yeah, being quite careful with your cash, because every pound, every penny could be used for R&D, for development, for, it could be that difference, like, oh, I can pay for this component, this sensor, this circuit board today, or I can't. So that's quite key.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And Mark, what about you? How do you fund the journey?
So, I mean, in comparison to all of you here, we don't have such a high burn rate for the month. I mean, it's quite straightforward. We built an app and a web app, and so sure you need like people and people with skills and all this for that, but we don't need like huge money for any approvals or so on. And so I think that's going well so far. And when just an interesting thought I would also like to share is when I spoke to many students or so who just are at the beginning with an idea, I feel that they always overestimate the importance of having finance immediately. You can go so far with like no or little finance, it's like fine.
Yeah.
I think that's like very true. Yeah, and if you don't get finance immediately or so, it doesn't mean that you have or an investment round if you don't close it, or so it doesn't mean it's like a bad business per se or like a bad idea. Just try to learn and keep going with it. But I mean, having funding or not is not the thing if it's a good or bad business.
Such good advice.
Yeah, fair enough.
Can I just say, etiquette, no leaving while the panel's speaking. I'm getting so annoyed with all these people coming and going, and they're making more noise than the speakers. That's like, I'm the chair here, you wait until there's a break.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's so annoying.
I think I'm to blame with the bubble tea.
Yeah, I think
everyone is the toilet. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much. And yeah, we're going to move on to a quick Q&A. So we've got a Slido here, so please.
Good advice.
Thank you. So yeah, please ask your questions via the Slido, or we'll just be asking you to give your questions out loud. So does anyone have a question for the panelists here? Okay, yes, Buka.
Do I use this or do I just speak out?
Yeah, just try and speak out, yeah.
Thank you guys so much. I think I should just start.
Yeah,
Thank you guys so much for the time and everything. My main question is, apart from funding, I think one of the biggest reasons why businesses fail is a lack of product market fit. So from your kind of experience, how did you go around value proposition validation? You have the idea, how do you actually know that people actually want this? Because it's great to have an idea and it's like, oh, this is a good idea, I like it, but what happens to everybody else, right? So yeah, I just wanted to find out how you went about that.
I can jump in.
Yeah.
So something that we learned quite early on is that when you're asking people about feedback on your product, it's never just going to be like, this is dot plot, this is a breast health monitoring tool, what do you think? Because likelihood is you're not going to get honest reviews or about what you're asking. There's a great book called The Mum Test. I don't know if you've heard about it before. I highly recommend reading it. And it's about how to ensure that what you're creating is actually worth developing. So what we did in the early stages of Dot Plot was taking it all the way back. So instead of us saying, okay, this is a breast sample monitoring tool, what are your thoughts? We literally ask people things like, how are you currently engaging with your breast health? What are the challenges that you're experiencing with it? If you were to have an ideal solution, what would that look like? What are you currently paying for? Different ways to monitor your health at the moment. What tools are you using? And then you kind of get a picture of what people are willing to pay, what people are struggling with at the moment, where you can fit into that. And then also when you have then kind of come back, compiled all of this feedback, developed an idea, you go back to them without kind of polishing it too much, giving it to them in its raw form. So for example, we did these really basic prototypes of the device, like lots of different ones. And we're like, okay, which one do you like the most, for example? Very basic, because the more basic the prototype is, or the more basic the idea is that you're giving to them, the more raw the feedback you receive from people, because if it's too polished, then they'll think, oh, you've put a lot of time into it, I can't give you honest feedback. So that's a crucial thing that I would say. But honestly, that book is brilliant. It teaches you how to ask questions in a way that are not leading, and to draw out this crucial feedback that you need from people. So that would be my advice.
Brilliant. And we've got a few questions come up on the Slido, but does anyone have any questions that they want to ask out loud?
Yeah, mine would be a follow-up about finding out how people, how your idea is great, how it's something that people need. I did product design, so I'm familiar with the user testing, user research process, but I'm wondering from all of our people on the panel, what was the actual experience conducting the user surveys in London or wherever else you conducted it? What were some of the challenges that you faced as well?
Okay, going to you, Mark.
Sure, yeah. I believe for us it was talking to many people. So I think my LinkedIn grew quite a bit because I tried to reach out to many people. I was also like on campus and just like talking to people, or like, hey, are you interested in entrepreneurship? And if they said yes, well, then they lost because I talked to them for a while. So for this validation process, I think how I would see is there's always some things you need to prove. First is business case, right? Open an Excel spreadsheet, make it simple and say, okay, if I have 1 customer, 10, 100 customers, and let's say whatever price times product, however, where do I end up, right? Do I make $1,000 per month? Do I make 10,000? When is it getting interesting for me that I say, hey, that could be something, right? That's just to like a prerequisite that you say, okay, that works. If you say, well, cool enough, sounds interesting, then to the validation part, I would say always talk to people, and to 2 types of people, to competitors and to potential customers. So try to find out who's out there already. If it's like Dot Plot, I don't know exactly what is out there, but maybe doctors even, right? What do you do right now if somebody comes to you and is worried about breast cancer and so on? Talk to like women, I guess, is a good target group. And yeah, I think this is the good first step to take.
Brilliant. We've got loads of questions on the Slido. One for Aryan. How do I start a business if I'm not business minded?
How do I start a business if I'm not business minded?
Yeah, good question.
Gosh, I mean, I definitely was not business minded. I want to study dinosaurs, man. Like that is, as you know, yeah. I think just surrounding yourself with the right people, number one, because I read somewhere, and I believe very strongly that you're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time around. You could surround yourself with strange people. You surround yourself with very intellectual people, or a mix. You will be the product of that. So if you surround yourself with people who maybe want to start a company or have some background, that's one for sure. I think going to events, definitely. Imperial for us was great because they had different events, they had accelerators, programs, whether I was participating in it or not, whether I was just talking to the advisors at the end, staying an extra 10 minutes, you get a feel for how it's like to run a company, what VCs look for, what different challenges there are. I think you can start from whatever position you're in. You don't necessarily need to be an Alan Sugar or whatever to start. Everybody has to start somewhere. So definitely don't belittle yourself into thinking, I'm not business minded. You can become business minded. I'm not like, some, as I said, Alan Sugar or whatever. You just learn during the process. That's the only way to learn, is being practical, making the mistakes, learning, iterating. So that's the only way. I wouldn't even say I'm business minded now. I'm getting there. Everyone is getting there. So that's what I would say.
And great for being here, by the way, whoever asked that question, because you're already in the space. Hopefully you can chat to people. Sorry? Hopefully you can chat to people. Sorry, Casper.
Hi, my question is to you, Kai. So you're talking about cold emailing a lot of people. How did you go about cold emailing, and who did you cold email?
I think, just to blanketly talk about cold emailing first, it's really with that resilience trait that you have to have. I think that's a non-negotiable. You have to be able to cold email 80 emails and get no response, maybe get one response. That's really, I would say, about cold emailing. You have to be resilient, and just because somebody doesn't respond doesn't mean your idea will never go anywhere. And in terms of how I would cold email, I think it really depends on your product, your problem you're solving. For me, it was LSE. So for me, I did a big research of LinkedIn's of the top senior people at LSE and thought, who looks like they would be most forgiving to my idea or most interested in my idea. And I did a lot of research into the head of catering, for example, and I thought maybe I looked into the head of kind of maintenance, but I fell on the head of estates, Julian Robinson, because he was someone who designed the Saucy Hawk building, which is the student union building, which if you've seen it, it's very creative, very different, very out there. And I thought this is somebody maybe crazy enough to go with the idea and listen to me. And I contacted his secretary, who kindly put me in a 10-minute meeting, which is all I wanted, just the foot in the door. And that was kind of the start for me. So I think really do your research about who are the candidates to go to, but don't feel like just because you've asked someone and they haven't responded that you can't go to a different candidate. I think find out who will take on your idea and do your best to pursue it. I think that persistence constantly is really what builds you up.
Brilliant. There are loads of questions, but I think we're going to end the panel just because of timings. But thank you so much for being here. And could you just give your one quick piece of advice that they can take away just to close the panel? Just a quick sentence on the best piece of advice you think people need to start a business. Okay, let's start with Mark.
Okay, don't worry as much, go for it. Yeah.
Be obsessed with the problem. That is one for sure, because if you're not thinking about it every day and like, how can I solve this? How can I solve this? Can I think of something new, something innovative to do this? And how can I be better than what's already out there? Then, you just gotta have that, sort of mindset, I think.
I'm with Mark, go for it. The worst that can happen is you learn things, waste a little bit of money, but your time that you've gone with things, you're always gonna learn more than you lose, I think. So go for it, like tomorrow, today, whatever.
I'd say find good advisors and mentors to highlight your blind spots and to direct your efforts to the right places to be focusing on.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. Weren't they amazing? This is the final panel of the day. These are our early late panel, and I'm really excited to introduce to you Isabella, Erifili, Igmar, and Nico. Please give them a warm welcome. I'll give a brief introduction about them and then we'll get right into it. So, Isabella, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the podcast. Isabella is a co-founder of Local Meal and a recipient of the Young Innovator Award in 2022. Local Meal is a startup which aims to help you discover the local, independently owned restaurants that don't get the visibility they deserve on Google. Though officially only launching their beta this month, they've already had over 1,000 downloads as a result of their innovative and affordable marketing strategies. They're supported by UCL Innovation Enterprise, Imperial Enterprise, Kickstart Global, and their app is making significant strides in the restaurant discovery space. So, welcome, Isabella. And here we have Nico on the end, the co-founder of the Fuego app. Nico dropped out of his bioengineering degree at Imperial to build this app, so really hoping this works out. Fuego uses AI to give users on-demand itineraries while traveling. So Nico joined a Google hackathon where he met an investor who said he'd only invest in him if he left his studies. So that is exactly what Nico and his co-founders did. Now at 21, Nico and his co-founder are heading up their 15-person team in London and have members across Europe. So yeah, great to have you on the podcast. Next, we have Ingmar, who is the CEO of Hustle, an early careers network connecting students, student societies, and employers. The platform contains more than 10,000 entry-level career opportunities, with new opportunities for young people being added every 15 minutes. Along this, Hustle boasts an extensive network of 450 university societies, and they've also just had 50,000 users on their app, so pretty incredible, right? Joy to welcome Ingmar to this event. And finally, last but not least, we have Aryan. She's a founder and she's a founder and CEO of the Zedling. This is paving the way for Gen Z marketing with a speciality in how brands can connect with young consumers in a way that is authentic, human, and community driven. Aryan launched the Zedlink in 2020, and the community has grown to over 18,000 people. And they've done work with Deloitte. They've helped the whole country, Greece, connect with their Gen Z audiences. And she was also named Forbes Under 30 in the Europe list. So great to have you on the podcast. So we'll start it like the format of the first panel. So we're going to be asking the 0 to 6 months. So Isabella, could you explain what your motivation was for starting Local Meal and how you developed it?
Yes, so basically me and my back then 2 co-founders, now it's just 1, we chose the entrepreneurship minor because we thought it would be just the easiest one. and then yeah, basically our professor at UCL, I don't know if anyone's doing that minor, it's great. So yeah, he said start with the problems. Then me and my co-founder, it was during COVID, we walked around Hyde Park and then we listed a bunch of really useless problems. And then we thought of a time that we traveled to Lisbon in Portugal and we wanted to find an authentic fish restaurant. And then we were like going on Google, Yelp, TripAdvisor, all looked like tourist traps. We walked around and then there were people with like those menus trying to bring you into overpriced touristy spots. And like we were literally about to give up. And then we found a tiny place in a hidden corner where none of the waiters spoke English, where we had the best fish we had ever tasted. And then we asked ourselves, why is it so hard to find an authentic local place? And then what we discovered is kind of this bigger issue that Google, Yelp, TripAdvisor, they're all ad supported. So what happens is big restaurants with bigger marketing budgets can flood money into ads and become more visible on these platforms. And often these local places that our generation really wants to support aren't as visible. And we just took it from there and designed the product, and yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. It's a really great app if any of you guys download it. It's called Local Meal. Yeah.
I'm going to start using it for sure.
Please do.
You just had to call it Lisbon. I came from Lisbon.
Lisbon.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm just about to go to Lisbon, so this is
I'll tell you about the fish place. But
please.
yeah, please, Local Meal, check it
Local Meal,
out.
it's
Yeah.
a fantastic app. I've been using it to find like local matches and it's been really great. So thank you. Yeah, tell us about your motivation, Aryan, for starting the Zedlink.
So I was working on social media marketing since I was probably like too young to be working on that. I guess that's how many people in social media tend to start. And when I started getting my first few jobs in the industry, I was, 18, 19, and they kept hiring me because they were like, you're young, we just need someone that gets like what you people want to see, like what Gen Z engages with, because nothing's working. And that happened enough times that I started seeing a lot of research pop up around Gen Z marketing and what our generation wanted to see and like how to target our generation. And all of that was just, so not very human. Like it was all just like marketing speak, like how to speak at our generation and broadcast to us. But, we see so much content every single day that none of that just really works.
Yeah.
And so since I had been in social media marketing for a while, I was very interested in entrepreneurship in general, but never really intended to start a company. But I realized there was no marketing agency that was fully Gen Z led and that was specializing in helping brands connect with Gen Z by making marketing more community driven, more human, and more of a two-way conversation. And so I started the Z-Link and also had a focus on collecting Gen Z data and doing market research so that brands in the world can just understand our generation better. And not just in the US, where most Gen Z research tended to focus, but all around the world.
Brilliant backstory. And Ingmar, what's your motivation for starting Hustle?
What was my motivation for starting Hustle? So I also started with my first company when I was 16. It was an agency, and when I was young, I just wanted to be financially free. That was my number one goal. I wanted to have freedom and some money basically, and I didn't want to have to work for a company. So I started an agency, and the way it worked is we have basically built websites with website builder tools. It's pretty easy. You could use Wix back then or some other tools. Now they've become much more widespread. And so we've built like 50 websites for stores and local stores in Munich that looked like they had not so good looking websites. And then we just went to those stores, knocked on the doors, and hey, we've built a website for you. You can have it for free if we do your monthly social media marketing as a retailer as well. And so then out of those 50 local stores we approached, we ended up with 3 first customers, and then that was kind of the first step into it all. And then that agency grew, and we then went into equity stories. So we started writing pitches for companies that were being acquired by other companies, or in one instance for an IPO of a company. And I was at university. I studied in St. Gallen in Switzerland, and I thought to myself, what do I actually want to do with my time and my energy? And when I'm 80 or 90 and I look back on my life, do I think to myself, have I been honest with myself? Is it really something that is meaningful to me? And so I started looking for a problem that was meaningful for me to solve. And I found it in the early career space. I think if you are able to make career choice more effective, meaning that people who are here in this room, for example, if you have better products that support you in, for example, your job search, or what Mark has built, finding co-founders and founding companies, then that will lead to less depression, more productivity, and more happiness. And there are very solid studies showing this, improving this. So I thought, okay, even if we build something and we fail and we were able to only improve or marginally have made one career decision a bit better, then it was worth it. And the cool thing about this is, since it's a product, if you have product market fit, you can then globally scale it, and it can actually have a big impact on millions of people's lives. And that was always my motivation. That's where I kind of came from. And then we started the company.
Fantastic. And yeah, I wish I had Hustle back after graduating. That would have been really useful. But yeah, I don't think I would have started the business if I found something right. So, anyway, Nico, what was your motivation?
Yeah, I think so for us, well, the story of Fuego, I guess, started about a year and a half ago now. We did this hackathon at Google, which we ended up winning with a concept which is part of Fuego, but not really Fuego now. And so afterwards, we got to speak with some really interesting people. We spoke with the CEO of Google, who told us something really cryptic. He told us, this could be like the next TripAdvisor or something. And so we kind of took it from there. We got very excited with my co-founder. And so we spent the year, going to Heathrow, speaking to tourists, skipping class, just trying to figure out what is really the problem in travel, like what do people want in travel? And what we realized is quite simple. It's that I think we're all, as a generation, Gen Z, we're all traveling really compulsively. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I've been planning my trips like 2 weeks in advance if I'm going somewhere. But at the same time, we want really good value for money. And we want to be able to do as many things as possible. We don't want to miss out. We're very FOMO sensitive. And as a result, because we're planning compulsively, we're taking trips compulsively, we're not planning them. So we're always missing out on things. So we took it from there. We made an app where it's essentially possible to, plan trips while you're on the go. Like while you're on your trip, you're still able to plan the next day. So that was the sort of foundation of Fuego. But I think the key of it was that my co-founder and I have always been very. Sorry, I've got a sore throat. Went to a concert the other day.
Which one? Sorry.
It was like this French rapper. It's insane. My co-founder and I have always been very like all or nothing kind of people. Like every year we try to found something, and we've always been like really eager to be entrepreneurs and found something groundbreaking. So then assembled a team, did a lot of user research, spoke to a lot of people. And now here we are, we've got a team of 14 in London,
Brilliant. I really like your all or nothing approach, because we've had the podcast, which will be out soon, but Nico has this really all or nothing approach. So I think you're obsessed with Japan, and then you moved to Japan?
Yeah. So I always go a bit too far in my interest, to be honest. But I was, when I was like 16, I got really interested in, first thing I was really interested in was like the secret services and stuff. So during this like military school, then got less interested in the secret services, got really interested in Japan, and then got a scholarship to studied in Japan, came to Imperial. And then every year it's always been this one thing, but I think it's going to be Fuego for longer than a year.
Okay, cool. So the next element of the podcast is marketing and sales. So these founders have grown really amazing businesses. So we want to know how you've marketed, how you've sold your product. So Isabella, how did you go about building brand awareness in the early days?
Yeah, so this is a really, I think, practical piece of advice for everyone in the room. So basically, we knew that the goal was to eventually build an app to help you discover local restaurants, but we didn't have the resources at all. And one of the best pieces of advice we got was, where's your Instagram and where's your website? And on your website, you can create a wait list for your app. So luckily for us, everyone loves food. So the Instagram account kind of grew quite organically. And fun fact, we probably got our first 2,000 followers by following every student in London. But because follow for follow. And then we would unfollow them. But the thing is, to this day, I have some of my friends like, why'd you guys unfollow me? I'm like, I'm not even, I don't know. It's
marketing strategy.
But the thing is, because we were providing content that was valuable to them, the unfollow rate was really low. So meaning students would follow us back, and community things, which maybe you can talk about, but basically when students start to see, 10 people I know follow this account, they kind of just follow it immediately without asking more questions. So basically, we only launched our app last month. We had an Instagram account open for like nearly 2 years before launching the app. And we grew a community of 5,000 Instagram followers and a wait list of 900 students. And so basically that funneled the downloads for our app. So I think just like, it's never too early to start. And also, oh my God, we basically like lied to everyone. We kept saying, we have an app coming out soon, next month. And then it took 2 years. but here we are and no one's mad about it. So yeah.
That's true, no one is mad about it because Local Meal unfollowed me as well. I actually love the content so much that I still engage. So no one's gonna hate you, all good. And you've got your followers now, so don't worry about it, it's fine. Igmar, the next question's for you. You've partnered with 450 societies. How did you get those partnerships and market to them your proposition with Hustle?
Mm-hmm. So when I was at university, I was also managing a society, and at my university, I think you're also from St. Gallen, or you studied there, Mark? I think I saw something. These societies are actually quite similar to the ones that you have in the UK. And if you go to the US, also they're very similar in terms of how professional they're organized. So I knew a bit about how, what pain points are of societies. And one of my two co-founders, one of them also was managing UCL Entrepreneurs when he was a student at the UCL. And so we just started going out to our network, and we actually made a decision in the beginning, hey, should we go with the DACH region, so Germany, Austria, Switzerland, to launch Hustle into, or do we go with, for example, the UK? And there was a purely rational choice to start with a country that has a much higher density of those student organizations as compared to other European countries. And so to your question, we just started with our network that we have with those societies. And then you have those early adopters. And I think, and I've talked to Kai before about the machine here that's outside. just to offer like the most amazing service to your early adopters and make them really champions for your product is so important. So when you have an issue with the bubble tea and whatever it is, you'll get a refund, and then you're happy. So I think that's important. And another thing that I want to say is, especially with consumer tech products. So we're a consumer tech product. We're building a marketplace with 3 different stakeholders: students, student societies, and companies. For all of those 3 stakeholders, we've built products, software products. And for all of those products, we need to find product market fit. And so it's really challenging to get there, and it can be really frustrating and demotivating to just look at Google Analytics and see 0 users. And you will see 0 users for maybe 6 months or maybe even longer than that with a consumer tech product, but that is fine. That is how all those companies have started out. And second thing I want to say, we haven't done the follow, but maybe we should have done that, the strategy. But it was really scrappy to get those first users onto the platform. It was just a lot of hard work. There was no easy way. There was no easy proven distribution channel that just worked perfectly. That was just so unique. God, it's just really tough, I think, to get those users. So we've done a lot of different things that somehow worked and gotten us some users, and then we found things that truly worked, and now we found a channel to get us to societies, for example, but also mainly because the product now is there, where it delivers so much value to societies that they also share it with other societies, their friends, and so it kind of grows more naturally.
So it's crazy you could have 0 users for 6 months,
yeah,
and then suddenly have 50,000 users. Like, how long was that? 2 years or so?
So that's actually a good point. Like last year, I think we had like the highest number was like 15 or 10,000 users or so, and then you start to see, okay, something now is starting to work somehow, and then it can really accelerate much quicker. And so I think 1 month ago we had 50,000 users. In a few days we'll have 60,000 users, and so then you're starting to grow much quicker, I think, once you get those things right. But again, with consumer products, you need to invest so much into product development. So basically, you need to pay salaries of your developers, and so you need to have some capital to build a product that can compete with current consumer products, because the bar is just set so high right now in the market that you need to suffer for a long time until you see user numbers on Google Analytics dashboard.
Brilliant.
But I just want to say that because I always I see videos and it's like, hey, cool, where do you get from 50,000 users to 100,000 users, and then I feel like, wait, when I started Hustle, I had 0 users for like a good period, like a long time, and that's something I think you should talk about. It's something that's completely normal. Any unicorn started out with 0 users, and that's completely fine.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you for your insights. And Arafili, you built a community of 18,000 people in 50 different countries. Please explain how you marketed that to get these many people.
So that is basically our market research community. So it's a community we have to send things to when we do market research for brands that want to understand Gen Z. That's like one aspect of our community, and then the other is the Z-Link's own like follower community of Gen Zers that just like what we do, which happened quite organically, and now we have maybe, I think, almost 30,000 followers on TikTok just because they like, I don't know, seeing, Gen Z trends and like stupid TikToks that we post. But so for the 2 different types of community, I think the first one was just a result of jumping on a trend super quickly, which I love to do, and it's kind of resulted in a lot of useful opportunities. Mm-hmm. And that was during COVID. Clubhouse was a thing, if anyone remembers. I remember, and I jumped on it like, probably I was one of the first like 1,000 users or something. I'm like a typical textbook early adopter girly. And so they started creating these communities on the app, and everyone was super excited because it was COVID and nothing else was happening. And I started a Gen Z community on the app because I was like, let's have some Gen Z conversations, I guess. And I think 18,000 people joined in 5 months. Like, I didn't do anything for it to happen. It just kept happening organically, and we were having conversations. That's the only thing we had to do. I got a lot of people that were just interested in helping out to host the rooms, as they were called. And we ended up having collaborations with the UN and with brands like Everlane, because they just wanted a space to talk to Gen Z So everyone, brands and people alike, were just into it at the time. It was just a result of, right place, right time. And then Clubhouse died down, so we were like, let's move out of here and find something else to do with this community. So I started this market research network to kind of allow people to get involved in opportunities, paid opportunities, to just give their opinions for data. And yeah, I guess that was the biggest thing, just right place at the right time and spotting early trends, figuring out where there's a gap.
So yeah, if people want to market, you think they should jump on trends, things that are happening?
Not necessarily alone, because I don't think like jumping on trends is a marketing strategy by itself, but I think there's something to be said about having an eye on things that are happening and being able to act quickly is so important when you're an entrepreneur without overthinking it. And like you don't need a business plan to start an online community, So if you just do things quickly, you're so much more likely to use the momentum that exists around something and be the first to do it, and that's what eventually leads to the traction.
Brilliant, thank you, everybody. And last but not least, Nico, how did you get people onto your product feature, which is more specifically the pints I'm referring to?
So for context, we had some investors who told us, because we were releasing the app in January, and we had some investors who were telling us that you need some early attraction. So Matt, my co-founder, and I went back home and we just brainstorming, what can we release right now? What's the smallest thing we can release? And we realized that in the process of getting all the best things to do in London, we got all the prices of like every pint, every beer in every pub in London. So we thought, maybe people would want to know where they can get the cheapest pints in London. So we just did that. We just made the just that portion of the app that we're releasing this Saturday. So how did we get users on the app? So we have a waiting list for the time being. And I think we have a lot to learn from you guys who are probably more experienced in marketing than we are. I mean, we're a team of 14 engineers. So to be honest, the good thing about that is that obviously we can build products very, very quickly. Like we can come up with an idea and in a week we can have the app finished. But the downside is we're not experienced in marketing, so we'll have to learn from you guys. But yeah, for the time being, we've been posting on Instagram, TikTok, and I think the times where we get the most engagement are during these sorts of events or like other pitch competitions as well. There's a lot of people in the audience who I think relate to the problem of having to plan your trips efficiently and not wasting time figuring out what to do. So people just want to follow the journey and are interested in general.
Perfect, yeah, and please download the Fuego app this Saturday, the feature. So brilliant.
Thank you.
I just want to explore with you, Nico, a bit more. How did you actually build the app once you were starting out? Like, who did you get involved? Like, how did you code it? If you could give us some really practical advice on that.
Yeah. So about building an app, that's a tricky question. I think that the thing is that so I came from a technical background. I did a lot of software engineering internships. Always liked coding. The reason why I got into coding is never one of these all or nothing moments. I think if I were to give very specific advice for building an app, I think build it in the simplest way possible. And I think an app is two things: it's front end, back end. And what I would suggest if you are building an app on your own is use something called Firebase, a service made by Google, super simple to use, a much less steep learning curve. And don't worry about all these things you see online, like, it needs to scale. Like, what if you get 1 million users? It won't happen. You won't get 1 million. So just even if it's an expensive service, like chances are you will not get 1 million users. And by that point, you have a lot of money, so you can pay for back-end engineers. Go for the simplest thing. And then I think, luckily enough, we're in an age where there's a lot of like no-code solutions which are emerging. So there's this thing called Flutterflow. You can build apps on the internet, kind of like Wix, but for apps. So all these solutions are good in the short term, and they allow you to like build something and show people. And I think beyond that, the most important thing you need to get good at is UI UX design, like designing user interfaces. Like you have an app idea, and I can only speak about apps. I don't know about products. I think prototyping is a lot harder. But if you have an app idea, you need to be able to like at least draw it and show people, well, what about this? Like even a drawing of a mock-up is really valuable, or even to show your teammates, show your vision. Because what we realized is, although we would speak about the idea, we all had different like vision for what it would look like. And I think the ideal solution lies somewhere in between everybody else's ideas. So yeah, I think getting good at designing is probably more important than getting good at coding. What I would say, I mean, this is in my early stage experience, is I probably wouldn't outsource developer work, because I think there's this whole issue of like intellectual property, and in the end you end up getting taken advantage of. I think from what I've heard a lot of disaster stories. But what I will say is there's a lot of students who will definitely do it, because it's like experience. If they're passionate about the problem, you can find a technical student, I think he will help you out. And the learning curve is a lot less steep than it used to be. And I'll conclude by saying, coding is probably the thing which you can have the most resources online for to learn. There is an insane amount of courses. I learned coding through something called JetBrains Academy. Don't know if it's still free. It used to be free. Anyways, so yeah, all this to say, you can definitely learn it, and it won't take too long, I think.
Yeah, brilliant points. And Isabella, to touch on Nico's point about not getting like a development agency in, can you share with us that story and maybe advice you'd give to other entrepreneurs about that journey?
Yeah, lessons were learned for us. So basically, so I told you it took us 2 years to launch the app. That's because 1 year in, we basically were fully bootstrapping. So between the three of us, we were like, okay, we have £4,000 to spend. None of us could develop an app. And basically we trusted one man who said he could do it. And our app, if you check it out, you'll see it's a beta app, but it's still quite complex. And back in the time, no-code solutions weren't very big either. So yeah, basically we didn't end up spending all of our money on him, but halfway through we realized we're never gonna end the project, and we had to terminate it and just take a step back. And then, but we still had the idea, we still had traction coming in, and then we got this grant. So I don't know if are we gonna talk about fundraising? Yeah, okay, so you'll hear about it, but basically that gave us a budget, slightly bigger budget, but not huge budget, to develop again. And this time we were really careful with who we were gonna pick, and we wanted someone who potentially could be a long-term co-founder. So yeah, my cousin lives in Serbia, and he's an iOS developer, and he was like, my colleague is looking for a part-time job. And it was really someone I trusted. My cousin's like my brother. This guy's also his friend. There's some accountability. He's 28 years old, which means he's still young enough to take some risk. And basically we used the development of this app as like a trial period. And by the end, well, we ran out of money, so we couldn't pay him anyway, but he's actually...
Was he okay?
Yeah, well, basically throughout I think he saw that there was some momentum happening, and he actually came to me, which I was happy about, for an equity conversation, because I was glad he had the initiative to say that. And one of our co-founders left in the meantime, so we had space to give him some equity. And so now that's what's going on. So we're bringing him in as CTO. We're a team of 3. And yeah, I'm really happy with how it all turned out, but I have to say it was really, really like a journey, and yeah, a lot of times where we were very close to stopping the whole thing, so yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Isabella. And Arafili and Igma, I'm just going to touch with you guys on how to build a team. You've both built amazing teams, and yeah, please tell us about the journey. How do you convince people to get on board with your idea? So Arafili, we'll start with you.
In my case, it was one of the most useful things I did while building the company is putting myself out there, talking in public, building in public, especially useful when you're building an app or a product. And the right people just find you.
Brilliant, yeah, amazing. So just putting yourself out there, people will come and find you. And Igma, how did you build your team? How did you start this?
Maybe before I go into the team, can I quickly add something to Nico's point on building the app? So I really loved what you said there. I think one thing that we have done wrong, for example, was that we built an MVP, a minimal viable product, and now you can see the shift and narrative happening, but people start to realize that you need to build a minimum lovable product. So there's something in the product that can be extremely simple, right? But there's something like the feature where you show the low-cost pints in London, right? There's something that people should love about that super simple feature. And I think that's the way to go nowadays. What we've gotten wrong is we've tried to do everything in the beginning, and then nothing really works. And then you need a longer time to get there until like really starts working. You need capital and so on and so forth. And now to the team, Also with us, I think we've gotten a lot of inbound applications in terms of like the sourcing. All the tech hires, so currently we're a team of around 30 people or so, and we have also around 15 people in the tech team. The tech hires, my CTO is very well connected, so he's usually hiring all his friends. And to the point, maybe, how do you build highly effective teams? So there's one thing that I always look for when people apply, which is, and that's the only thing pretty much, is ambition.
Wow.
That has always worked for us. So when we have hired people because of the experience or of the CV or because it looked good, it didn't turn out to be that great. And when someone came up to me after an event, that's actually how I just hired our most recent founder's associate. They came up to me after one of those events, actually. They've kind of pitched themselves, and you could feel it in the room that this person is just really, really ambitious. They want to do something. Best hiring decision. So, and then how do you create a highly effective team? And I think we had this point on the panel before that I think Molly mentioned it, is promoting kind of the entrepreneurship. So people, like all of here in the room, are probably entrepreneurial minded. It doesn't really matter. You can found companies, or you have jobs in companies. But then it's about the employer being able to empower you to have responsibility, and that doesn't mean that you put it on a slide and you share it in a team call. You say, hey, we give people responsibility. That actually means that they have to be able to make decisions by themselves and don't have to go to their co-founder or anyone who is above them. And if you do that, then also you need to implement a very good tolerance for mistakes and failure. Because what's going to happen is that the people that you've just hired, they have the freedom to make their own decisions. They don't have to go to me or to anyone else for small things, but they will also make mistakes. And those mistakes will also be costly. They will cost you money, they'll cost you resources, they'll cost you time. But then you can't say, oh, you made this mistake, this is you're fired, right? So then also you have to say, well, okay, this is a mistake, fine. Now we learn from it. And then people start feeling really empowered, and they become very independent, and they become extremely energized. They actually want to do something. They feel very responsible for what they're doing. And then you can, I think, build a team that works also without you, that works without really kind of a structure of tasks and so on and so forth. That's my 2 cents on that.
Brilliant.
Can I jump in? Yeah, I've got this. You gave me an idea actually. Right? It'll be quick. But I think, to me, building a good team is about like a mixture of 2 types of people, right? I spoke about it on the podcast. I think there's dreamers and there's down to earth people, and I think the right mixture of both of these things is what makes a successful team. So like I said, all or nothing. It's become a running gag now. But yeah, so Matt and I, my co-founder, we're very like dreamers. We're like, what if we went to every single pub in London? We're going to go to all of them. What if we did? So we come up with these crazy, unfeasible ideas. But it's good because it's good for creativity. You want to start with the craziest things and then go down from there rather than the opposite way. And then, but on the other hand, the CTO, who's also one of my good friends for 8 years, he's very, very down to earth, like very down to earth. So there's this right balance between the two is what I think makes a good, successful team. So yeah, there's ambition. There's also being, grounded. Yeah.
Brilliant. And we're going to play a quick game. It's called Would You Rather, but we're going to shorten it because of time. So yeah, I'm going to just give you a series of Would You Rather questions, and yeah, I would love to hear your responses. So, would you rather have dinner with Jay-Z or £500,000?
£500,000.
For sure. £500,000. Okay.
Our founders need the money.
Yeah.
I'll pay Jay-Z 100K. I'll keep the remaining 400.
Yeah. So yeah, hands up, 500K. Who would take 500K? Who would take dinner with Jay-Z? Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. But actually, funny interview. Jay-Z told everyone to take the money. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So the next question is, which one would you rather have dinner with? the CEO of Netflix, CEO of YouTube, or the CEO of TikTok? Nico, we'll start with you.
I think for me it would be definitely TikTok, because there's a lot of interesting aspects from TikTok which we have in Fuego as well. So I think I have a personal interest in what they do at TikTok. Yeah.
Brilliant. And Igmar, what about yourself?
For me, it'd be Netflix. I've seen some things about the guy. I don't remember his name. What was his name again?
Reed Hastings?
Reed Hastings, exactly. And there were some really badass posts that I've seen on LinkedIn about the story of Netflix. And so I'll be him. Yeah. The other two I don't
follow him too.
I
follow him too. And he posts a lot.
I really wouldn't do this.
TikTok naturally. I mean, it's literally what we do, so I would have to.
TikTok. And Isabella, last but not least.
I think also Netflix, because of the stage they're at, because I feel like YouTube will always be established. Okay, maybe not. TikTok right now is like the thing, but Netflix is kind of interesting because they kind of like were the industry entrant, and now they're being hit with like all these streaming platforms. It'd be interesting to see like how they're dealing with that. Yeah.
Brilliant. And we're going to take it to the audience. So please, if you've got a question, if you could either shout it out or you can put it on the Slido. This. Okay, yeah, just feel free to shout them out. Casper.
Yeah. My question is to you, Isabella. You're talking about how other bigger companies like Trivago and stuff, they would be using ads to fuel their recommendations. How would your marketing strategy, your business strategy, be sustainable to not include ads and become like those companies?
Yeah, so trust is like our biggest value proposition. So what we want to do is we want to leave users to do what they want. So we're a user-generated recommendation platform, and because we want to hear where do local people like to eat. So we don't want to touch that, and we never want to include ads. Our vision is to eventually integrate our own booking system. And if we can show restaurants like, hey, users are coming through our app, they're clicking book, we're bringing you money, hopefully we can basically have them join our booking platform, so it's kind of like a seamless way of making money without any ads.
Perfect. And yes.
So thank you so much for sharing. I particularly like Isabella and Aryan, your story about how like community building actually accidentally or not led to where you are today. And right now, statistically, up to 90% of startups can fail. And you guys are here because you made a lot of right decisions or better decisions. I would love to know from each one of you, what is the one most critical decision you made that led you to where you are today? I would love to hear more like the specific things rather than just like, because you chose to start a business.
I can start. For me, it was like a very, so as I told you, the first round of development failed. We burned any money that we could scrape together, and then it was looking really bad. And honestly, I think that was a point that a lot of people would have said as students. We were final year at UCL. I think that was the point. It was that summer of graduating. A lot of people would have said, I graduated from UCL, I have a great degree, I can just go and look for a job. And basically, I think I used like my last ounce of energy to apply for this grant in the summer. I was in Montenegro with my family. I had my 13-year-old cousin film me. And I really didn't even think we were gonna get the money, and then we did. So there are like little moments like that, and that's why we're still here.
For me, I think it would have to be early on, making myself get comfortable with shooting my shot for things that I thought there was no way were ever gonna work. So I think exactly 1 month into launching the Zingling, no budget, no team, nothing, I started cold DMing journalists on social media that were writing about Gen Z and marketing. And I didn't send many, I sent probably 5 messages. And one of them replied from Business Insider. And I was basically just like, hey, I just launched this. If it's interesting to you and I can help in any way, please let me know. I'd love to help, period. And then I didn't really follow up, didn't want to bother her, just wanted to put it out there. And she was like, actually, I'm writing a story about Gen Z consultancies, would love to feature you. So she did, and then got our first organic press story like that 6 weeks into the business. And that brought probably 10 clients for the next 2 years because they were ranking so high on SEO, they had a big reach, And then I just kept doing that through the years with different journalists, different press outlets, and it worked so well. But when you're starting out, you definitely don't think anyone is gonna care. I think just being optimistic and still putting yourself out there if it seems unlikely was a big one.
Yeah, press is really great if you're a young entrepreneur. It's free and gets you like really great exposure. So we'll take 2 more questions from the. Okay, Azar, let's go to you.
Question for you, Ingmar. You're amazing at getting users on the platform, but after you've got those 50K users, what's your journey been in terms of scaling your user engagement metrics, like page clicks or weekly active users?
So with us, it's especially tough because we're in a market where there's default churn. When you basically as a student, you'll probably only look for jobs in fall or in spring, and then maybe for internships also specific times. So you have seasonality, and then you have churn by default because once you found your internship, you're not going to need us anymore. And so in terms of that, we have, for example, societies that organize events like these events on a more regular basis, also across the seasons. And so this deseasonalizes the user engagement a bit more. And then, of course, once you're there, you start looking at, okay, how can we, basically when you look at the product, you first think, okay, you want to acquire users, you want to activate them. So how do you get them really to become active? What are the things that actually make them active? And then optimize for those in the product. And these are usually very small things. Like right now, when you're using Instagram or maybe WhatsApp, I just had a chat with someone who wants to build a competitor to WhatsApp. And something also I have realized building a consumer product is the products that we use on a daily basis right now, we have no idea how much thought has been put into them on such a marginal level that you don't even, you just take for granted kind of, but those parts are just built so damn good. And that's just a long process, I think, to then optimize for it. But we're very happy when we have positive churn, when people have found jobs, then we're super happy.
Brilliant. And we'll take a final question. Yeah, preferably a question for Nico, if anyone has one.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so, great talk, everything is really interesting. I think for like building your product and distribution, you can reinforce it. Like distribution, maybe LinkedIn DMs, cold emails, about that. But how do you get people to pay? Like, since first you use it, how do you get them to pay?
So the question is, how do you get users to pay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the core of it is, and it's the case for any consumer business that's B2C, you have to be focused on the product and then focus on the money later. And it's a really big challenge, especially when you're full-time, which is why in hindsight, I would think that being full-time has its perks, but it also has this issue that now you're focused on money, because if you're not bringing money in, then you're not paying rent. But I think, so for a consumer business, even just having free users is already money, right? So you don't necessarily need them to be paying, but I think it's about building essentially a really high quality product. And it's a balancing act. For anything that's a freemium model, it's a balancing act between having value in the free plan anyway, and having that little bit, just enough added extra value in the paid plan. And it's something we're still working on and something we're doing user research on. We have these like little focus groups, which actually, if you guys want to join, you can just send us a little message on Instagram, fuego.travel. And we essentially have a think about, what are the things that people want in this paid plan. And yeah, so that's how we do our user research. Essentially, we just need to talk to people and understand what they want.
Weren't they amazing? How actionable was it? We'll start with you. Give us a bit of background about yourself.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Reese. I was born and raised in Hong Kong, but came here for university last year at the LSE. So I actually study international relations, which is really funny because like everything I do is basically related to like business and entrepreneurship. What I think drew me to entrepreneurship was, back when I was 16, I founded and scaled a nonprofit. But I think what's special about LSE is there's so many people who are commercially minded, right? Who have the skills, but it's just that entrepreneurship isn't necessarily in their like purview, right? Because there's such a strong dominant culture for like investment banking, consulting, and law. So I think what we're trying to do at the society is really elevate people's ambitions, in a sense, have them consider entrepreneurship or even as a side hustle, because I think there's so many benefits to building on a venture. But I think, again, there's so much potential at LSE. Out of 300,000 alumni, 30,000 actually are eventually business founders, actually, down the line, 6 years down the line on average. But yeah, it's trying to get that entrepreneurial mindset on campus.
Brilliant. Thank you, Reese. And really, give us a brief introduction about yourself and why you care about inspiring students to pursue entrepreneurship.
Yeah, sure. So a bit about me, I'm born and raised in Kolkata, which is in India. And I'm a third year biomedical engineering student at Imperial and also the president of Imperial Entrepreneurs. So my high school was always very competitive. So like my whole, like from when I was a kid, ambition has been like, I've been very ambitious. So like the people around me have been very ambitious. Like Aryan mentioned, like you're the product of the 5 people closest to you. So my school has always been ambitious, and after coming to London also, like I was looking, like I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I was looking for the way I could create most value and also enjoy my time at the same time. How I got into entrepreneurship is during my first year, I started watching like these YouTube videos that Y Combinator released. There's like these talks that Dalton Caldwell and Michael Seibel do, which really inspired me a lot. And like the way they speak just kind of makes you think in really ways you would never thought, like and it's really inspiring. And so that's how I got into entrepreneurship, and I just wanted to explore the space more in London and see what people are doing, what kind of companies people are founding. Are students even founding like companies that would go on to succeed or be relevant, or is it just like side projects that don't become anything? So I've just been like meeting a lot of people, talking to a lot of founders. It's been interesting, and yeah, as Reese mentioned, a lot of people want to go into the corporate like space, go banking or like software engineering, and founding a company is not in the mind of a lot of people. And we just want to like have a platform where people can come and like see if this is like something they might want to pursue. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, Riddy. And Molly, we know you've had a really interesting background. You used to be an actress on Holby City and Netflix as well. So what made you want to be the president of UCL Entrepreneurs and encourage students to start businesses?
Yeah, it's quite random. My CV is like kind of all over the place, but I think that's kind of what attracted me to entrepreneurship is kind of going against the grain and trying new things and not being afraid to fail as well. I think that's a key characteristic that I've seen in student entrepreneurs, and I really wanted to find a community at university who I could be friends with and I could experience uni life with.
Yeah.
And I thought that the Entrepreneurship Society would be the best place to find that.
Yeah. And why do you guys care about entrepreneurship? Why do you want more students to pursue this journey?
I think fundamentally there's a big sort of misconception, I think, about entrepreneurship, that it's always about, trying to build a unicorn, that it's like inherently very risky. I think what we're trying to really deliver as a message is that there's really no better time to start than when you're in your university days, when you have slightly lower sort of risk, responsibilities as well. And even if your startup doesn't work out, that early formative experience, right, of taking ownership and taking an idea from, conception to execution is such a strong, useful skill to have that, yeah, we really want to champion that culture on campus, right? And one of my favorite books is this book by Reid Hoffman, The Startup of You, which is, can you apply the principles of like design thinking, lean frameworks to like your career, to job search, to networking, to, finding opportunities. And I think if we can really champion that culture of entrepreneurialism, regardless of whether you want to start a business, regardless of whether that's a software company, a social enterprise or otherwise, that's already a big value add for all the students on campus.
Yeah, brilliant. So you might as well start because there's so low risk when you're a student. Brilliant. And Riddy, what about yourself?
I feel like as I grow up, I get like less optimistic about the world. So I feel like right now is the current, like the best age to like start a company, because you have to be like, you have to have a certain kind of mindset to be an entrepreneur. You have to be like really, like you have to execute, you have to be like determined, you have to be like optimistic, you have to be obsessive about your thing. And like as you grow up, like when you get into like the job world, there's like a lot of structure, and like entrepreneurship is not, it's like very chaotic.
But yeah.
And so like right now would be the perfect time to like go out there and try new things, because I feel like there's this quote, I don't know who said it, but like it's not the years of experience you have, but the amount of experiences you have in a year that matter. And as an entrepreneur, that really is something that like you do a lot in, like you have to do a lot of things to like become an entrepreneur and sustain. So I feel like it is like everyone should try to, like at least once in their life, try to build something, because you learn a lot in the process.
Yeah. Entrepreneurship is really like a fast track to learning a lot of different skills. So yeah, really, really great. And what about you, Molly? I know, again, you have a bit of an interesting take on entrepreneurship. You think that, actually you tell us.
I just hate entrepreneurs. My take on entrepreneurship is that you can sort of have these entrepreneurial skills, and you can take those into companies, and you can make huge difference there. So one of the things that we're trying to do this year is develop entrepreneurial skills, so that if our graduates inevitably end up at Amazon, which a lot of them will, they can take these learnings and this sort of care for sustainability and for ESG and for all these great things, and take them into companies, because I believe that entrepreneurs are the ones who are going to change the world. And I think that there is nothing wrong with changing the world from within a company at the same time as growing your own from scratch.
Well, brilliant. So what are your final tips for students wanting to get into entrepreneurship? Like a one sentence.
I think start off small. Again, it doesn't have to be a full-blown software startup. It could be a podcast, right? It could be a social enterprise. It could even be just a blog. So that early experience of starting something will generate that mindset shift that will basically power you for the rest of your entrepreneurial journey. And eventually you might start a full-blown startup. But again, entrepreneurship can come in many different shapes and forms.
Brilliant. Riddhi, what about yourself?
I mean, I feel like I mean, a job will always be there, but like, why not take the risk and give yourself a chance? Yeah, if that makes sense.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Molly, what about yourself?
I just got really distracted by your answer. What was the question?
Yeah, it was, what is the one piece of advice you give to students starting?
Okay, so I'd say, even if you don't have an idea, like just go to these entrepreneurial events. You're actually probably like gold dust to people, because they're always looking for co-founders. So if you come up and you don't have this kind of idea in your head, and maybe like a little bit of arrogance, and you're just like, I want to join your team, you are going to have so many people who flock to you, and I think a really welcoming community out there.
Brilliant. Well, thank you to the Society's panel.